So here's a question that keeps a lot of people up at night in the world of geopolitics. Is the United States on the exact same path that brought down the mighty British Empire about a century ago? It's a huge question, and today we're going to unpack it. To really get a grip on this, we have to start by looking back, way back. At its absolute peak, the British Empire controlled a staggering 25% of the world's land and its people. It was the empire on which the sun, quite literally, never sat. You're talking about a power that completely reshaped the modern world. From establishing total dominance of the seas at Trafalgar to forcing its will on China and the Opium Wars, and then grabbing control of global trade with the Suez Canal. Its reach was just immense. But here's the wild part. Even at the height of all that power, the end was already beginning. Under the surface, these hidden pressures, we're talking crippling war debts, new industrial competitors popping up, and just the sheer crushing cost of running an empire, were quietly planting the seeds of its downfall. And all that history brings us right back to our critical question. Is Britain's story just a historical echo, something that rhymes with today, or is it a direct blueprint for the challenges America is facing right now? To figure that out, we've got to make sure we're all on the same page. Let's define our terms. When we talk about hegemonic decline, it's not what you see in the movies, a sudden, fiery collapse. Not at all. It's more like a slow leak. It's this gradual wearing away of a country's ability to actually maintain the global system it built.
And it's really important to note there are two flavors of this. There's absolute decline, which is a total internal collapse. But what we're focused on here is relative decline. That's different. That's when you might still be growing, but your rivals are just growing faster. Your slice of the global pie starts to get smaller, even if the whole pie is getting bigger.
Okay, so with that groundwork laid, let's start looking for the cracks. Let's dive into the really striking parallels between the challenges Britain faced back then and what America is dealing with today. Let's start with a number that's almost impossible to wrap your head around. $38 trillion. That's the projected U.S. national debt for 2025. This right here points to our first major parallel. Massive, massive economic overextension. Now, a number that big doesn't mean much without context, right? So let's compare. After World War II, Britain's debt was a crushing 270% of its GDP. It literally became impossible to afford the empire. The U.S. today? It's around 125%, and it's driven by very similar things: huge social commitments and military spending. And the consequence is exactly the same: a national budget getting squeezed to death by interest payments. So, the second parallel? Every top dog eventually has a challenger nipping at its heels. For Britain, it was a rising industrial Germany. For the U.S. today, it's a rising technological China. But here's a really key difference to keep in mind. Britain's empire was physical. It was about land and colonies. America's is more virtual. It's built on finance, technology, and intellectual property. And that challenge isn't just theoretical. It hits right at the heart of American power, the U.S. dollar. For decades, it's been the global currency. But that dominance is slipping. Look at this. The dollar's share of global reserves has dropped from 71% down to 59% in just a quarter century. This trend, what people call de-dollarization, is a really big deal. But hold on. It's really easy to just draw straight lines from the past to the present. The thing is, history doesn't just repeat itself perfectly. The U.S. is not a carbon copy of Imperial Britain, not by a long shot. There are some fundamental differences here that change the whole equation. Let's just run through three massive advantages the U.S. has that Britain could only have dreamed of. First, energy. The U.S. is a net energy exporter, which gives it incredible leverage. Britain had to import everything. Second, innovation. America is still, without a doubt, the world's engine for new technology. It's a magnet for the smartest people and the biggest investors. And third, demographics. While rivals like China are facing a population crunch, the U.S. is the only major developed country whose workforce is actually set to grow. These are huge structural advantages. And this all brings us to our final and maybe most important point. If a decline does come for America, it might not be because of some external rival or because it's destined to happen. The biggest threats, as a lot of analysts see it, are internal. They are self-inflicted wounds. Just think about this for a second. An incredible 89% of Americans believe the intense political division in the country is just going to stay the same or get even worse. That kind of polarization can paralyze a country. It erodes any sense of national unity, and it sounds a lot like the bitter class conflicts that tore Britain apart between the wars.
And you can literally see another symptom of this problem just by looking around. When a great power stops investing in its own foundation, that is a classic textbook sign of decline. The American Society of Civil Engineers gives the country's roads a D and the energy grid a D+. That is a massive drag on the entire country's potential.
You know, the political scientist Joseph Nye really hit the nail on the head with this one. The whole argument boils down to this. Decline isn't inevitable. It's not fate. If it happens, it will be the result of choices, or more accurately, the failure to make the tough choices. It's all about whether a nation can get its own house in order. So, we're left with this question. After seeing the parallels, the big differences, and the internal challenges, what do you think? Is the story of the British Empire a blueprint for America's future, a path that's already set in stone? Or is it a warning, a list of lessons that if we actually learn from them could change the outcome completely? The choice, it seems, is still waiting to be made.